Greetings, mortals! It is I, Remortis, coming at you with another guide to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. This time, with the continuation of the Commissar build. However, this is going to be for the Commissar Officer Vanguard. It'll be more of a support tank type build, as opposed to being a support damage build. And you'll still be able to do a decent amount of damage as a Vanguard through your counterattacks from parrying and just being taunting enemies to save your allies. Alright, without further ado, let's just get right into it, shall we? First things first, we'll be making our character. Of course, pick the Commissar picture you prefer, or if you have your own. And honestly, the bold voice just is the best for the Commissar, in my opinion. Alright, as for our homeworld, we are going to be taking the Forge world. So, the purpose of this build with the Officer Vanguard is to be a tank, and to support your team as well. And unfortunately, the Officer isn't really a tanky class, so we're going to need to get as many tanky options through our homeworld and our Vanguard options as best we can. Forge World, by far, is the tankiest out of all the other homeworlds. Death World comes pretty close, too. However, Forge World has a few things going for it. Namely, one of the talents, Steel of the Forge, which will allow you to get an extra movement point of deflection, and you cannot fall prone whenever you're wearing heavy armor. And we will be wearing heavy armor in this build. We can also use a little bit of extra damage with our intelligence bonus through our melee attacks and plasma and melta attacks. Ideally, we'll be using a one-handed sword and a plasma pistol, because to me, that's just really iconic for a Commissar character. The other reason we want to pick the Forge World homeworld is when you select it, you get to pick 3 different options for your character. Locomotion system is pretty solid. However, this is more oriented towards lightly armored characters and assassins. We're going to be picking the subskin armor option, which will allow us to use our toughness bonus to get us more armor. Alright, and obviously we'll be picking our Commissar for our origin. So one of the main features the Commissar has to offer is an ability called At All Costs. The Commissar's next single shot or single target melee attack applies the following attacks. If you use it on an enemy target, the target becomes marked. The ally who kills it will gain an additional turn after the current one, with +2 ability points and +4 movement points. Pretty sweet if you want to be a little bit selfish for your characters. Otherwise, you can use this ability on an ally target, and all allies will gain an additional AP and movement point for the round. You only can use this once per combat. And keep in mind, hopefully you use it on somebody who can resist it or can potentially dodge it, because this ability will still work even if they aren't hit by the ability itself. So as long as you're shooting somebody with it, you will be able to get its benefits. You don't actually have to hit the target for this to work. But if you use it on an enemy target, you'll be able to make that person who killed it take an extra turn. This combos really well with snipers, for example. Very iconic Commissar ability. Alright. As for your triumphs and darkest hours, they don't really matter that much, but I'm going to be focusing on coercion in this build, so let's go ahead and enhance our coercion. And then as for this other stuff, it doesn't really matter. Out of all of these, you probably want to keep your athletics maybe, or persuasion as well, or you can get rid of your awareness. Let's just get rid of our... Alright, so we'll be starting off as an officer. So for our starting stats, we're going to be taking stuff to help us achieve our tankiness a little bit earlier, and also to compensate for the fact we won't be able to pick up some of these stats as we're leveling up in our officer archetype. So that being said, we'll be putting a 10 in strength. That way, as soon as we get into Vanguard, we can add a point of strength in there and get our heavy armor. So we'll be getting our heavy armor a little bit later than other tank builds. Usually you can pick up the heavy armor in your first archetype. This time we'll have to be picking it up in our second. So this will just help us get there a little quicker. We're going to enhance our toughness just to get up to 40. So we can get our toughness bonus to 4 instead of 3. And then we're also going to enhance our intelligence by 1 just to get that 4 intelligence bonus, so that we can enhance our usage of our Forge World talents. And then lastly, since we are an officer, we're going to enhance our fellowship. Alright. And that is our character. So let's get into the rest of the build. Alright, so for our officer archetype, we're going to be focusing on support skills, obviously, but we're going to try to get ones that are more useful for us being on the front line. Ideally, you'll be pairing yourself with either Abelard, Heinrichs, or maybe even Argenta. It's all up to you. Personally, I want to focus on assisting our melee characters, since we'll be up in the melee as well. And honestly, I think Heinrichs as your main partner would be very thematic. As for this playthrough, our conviction will be towards the dogmatic and a little bit of the iconoclast, or the opposite, since commissars are very dogmatic characters, and perhaps your character might be completely for the Empire and the Emperor, but you might have a little bit of a heart for your people after you see all the bullshit they go through. Anyways, that being said, at level 2, the skill of choice will be Coercion. The Commissar themselves already get a massive boost to Coercion anyways, so why not enhance this further by increasing our Coercion on our character? There are some other reasons to do that as well for a particular item that will make us very strong in the late game. And can you really call yourself a Commissar if you are not intimidating as hell? So yeah, we'll be focusing on Coercion here. At level 3, you get your Bring It Down ability. It's one of your key abilities to give your allies extra turns and let them do some devastating damage. And also do a little bonus damage based on your fellowship, as long as you cast your Voice of Command on them first, which you generally will. Then at level 4, we get our ultimate, Finest Hour. This is probably one of the best ultimates in the game. Just gives your ally a full turn with full AP and MP, and they can keep attacking. And there's also some bonuses to make it so they can attack even further than this. Alright, so as our first talent, we're just going to go hit this hard and pick up Seize the Initiative. Probably one of the best talents in the game. At the beginning of combat, you will always gain an extra turn. So in the beginning of combat, you'll always go first. However, you can only use your officer abilities. Most likely, you'll be using Voice of Command and then followed by Move, Move, Move to get your ally into position. Sometimes you might just use Bring It Down from the get-go, but that'll cost you 2 action points. The other thing about the Seizing Initiative is that this isn't a special turn. So this is not your main turn. This is just one that you can use your officer abilities ahead of time so that we can kind of plan things ahead. And then once your turn, you can take your full turn. So yeah, generally I'll try to use Voice of Command followed by Move, Move, Move to get him in position, or you might use another ability. Anyways, moving on at level 5, we'll go ahead and increase our fellowship. And then we'll pick the talent Pinnacle of Weaponry, which will add our intellect bonus to Plasma, Melta, or Power Weapon attacks. And then for the rest of the combat, it'll be half of your intelligence bonus. Pretty nice thing to give us a little bit extra damage, since we're not going to really have many options as our officer, or the Vanguard really, to really enhance our damage. So this will help us just get sneak in a little bit of damage in there, and also help you feel rewarded for being your one-handed and pistol build, just being a little versatile. Alright, level 6, we'll be picking up Lasting Impression. This is probably one of the best abilities the officer has to offer, as Voice of Command will only last 1 turn. This one, however, will make it so they only get half the stat bonuses granted by Voice of Command, but it'll last until the end of combat. That means you can still use your other abilities as well, such as Bring It Down or your other buffing abilities, even if you're out of range of your other allies. This is fantastic, since your character's going to be in melee a lot, and maybe your other characters that you buffed is not in melee, like say like Argenta or Adira or whoever. Or perhaps you have one of your assassin-type characters run off a different direction than your Commissar. Anyways, Lasting Impression is really good. And then we'll also further increase our fellowship. At level 7, we get our first ability. Now, all of these abilities for the officer are amazing. They're really, really good. I, however, really value movement on the battlefield to get your people in the right places. So I'm going to be picking Move, Move, Move first. Air of Authority is pretty sweet to help enhance your ally to give them more bonus action points and also increase their resolve so you can get your ultimates out faster. which might be of high value to you, especially in the harder difficulties when it's really hard to get that resolve. Break the Ranks and Take Aim are both fantastic abilities as well, especially if you decide you know which character you're going to be pairing yourself with the most, like who you're going to be enhancing. So if you're going to be enhancing a melee character, you're going to use Break the Ranks, which will enhance your allies' melee attacks based on your fellowship bonus, multiplied by the number of enemies around that target. And on top of that, if you have Voice of Command on them already, they'll be able to make an attack of opportunity, which is pretty sweet. And that's actually going to be really relevant for this character as well, since we're going to be forcing a lot of opportunity attacks for our allies. And for ourselves, too, for the matter. And then Take Aim is really good for any ranged character, as it'll double their attack distance on their next attack, and also ignore cover. And then it also makes it so the damage can't be reduced below a certain threshold based on your fellowship. So both of these items are really great. We probably won't be grabbing in the early game. We'll probably be picking these back up in our Exemplar levels. So for now, we're going to be taking Move. And then I picked up the common talent, Combat Master. Since about this point of the game, we're going to start being hit by a lot of enemies, and you want to prevent that melee superiority, which makes it so whenever you're outnumbered, the enemies will receive a +10 weapon skill bonus for each ally. Now, you don't want to have to deal with that, because you want to parry as much as possible. Weapon skill will help reduce that, and if they have melee superiority and they have 3 targets or so, that's +20 weapon skill coming at you. So, Combat Master negates that. Definitely pick that up. At level 8, we will be picking up the officer talent, Leader's Assault. Whenever the officer makes an attack, they gain 5 fellowship until the end of combat. Pretty sweet, and it stacks. And we won't be attacking a lot just yet, but once we start picking up our Vanguard levels, we'll be getting a lot of counterattacks, and that will still count for Leader's Assault. And then we'll further increase our coercion. At level 9, we pick up our Finest Hour Ultimate upgrade, and I really love picking up the 4th option first. This will allow your ultimate to enhance that extra turn by making any kill they make restore 1 AP and 1 MP. Up to your fellowship bonus. So as you currently see here, we have 77 fellowship, so they can attack an extra 7 times. Pretty sweet. At level 10, we'll be increasing Lore Imperium, not that the coercion's maxed out. You could obviously pick up Carouse or another ability as you desire, but honestly, I feel Lore Imperium is very suiting for your Commissar. And then we're going to be picking up something interesting here. For our next stat, we can either increase our toughness to be tankier, or our weapon skill to make attacks land a little bit more. I decided to go with ballistic skill, since we will be using a little bit of a pistol here and there, and I just want to make sure we can hit a little bit more often. So we decided to go with the ballistic skill. And then, since we are going to be near allies quite often, allies under the effects of the officer's abilities gain a bonus to their weapon skill equal to your And then at level 11, I decided to pick up the talent Be Vigilant. Allies under the effect of the officer's abilities gain a bonus to their weapon skill equal to 3 plus your fellowship bonus. And will deal +7 more damage, which is your fellowship bonus, on attacks of opportunity until the officer's next turn. So this is going to be really nice when we start comboing those extra free attacks for your allies. And this is going to be more oriented towards melee characters, obviously. Argenta's not going to be whacking people upside the head with her bolter. She's going to be shooting them. So this is going to be more for Heinrichs and Abelard if you decide to keep Abelard around. Although since you're going to be a Vanguard, you probably don't need Abelard around. Anyways, and then we further increase our ballistic skill. At level 12, we will be picking up Air of Authority. Air of Authority will enhance the allies' resolve by 7 until the end of combat. And if the target's under the effect of your voice command, they'll have an extra action point at the start of their next turn, which includes your extra turn granted by Bring It Down. Alright, and then we pick up Dueling Mastery to increase our parry rating. At level 13, we'll pick up the officer ability called Undaunted. The officer gains 10 willpower and 10 fellowship when they have less than 50% of their max health remaining. They also gain +10 willpower and +10 fellowship after using an ability on a target with less than 50% health as well. These two sets of bonuses do stack with each other, but do not stack with themselves, so at most with this ability, we'll be gaining a maximum of plus 20 willpower and plus 20 fellowship. I decided to go with this one since we'll be up in the melee quite often, and tanking for that matter, and we'll be taking damage more likely than not. And this will help us get a little extra boost out of that. And then we further increase our Lore Imperium. At level 14, we will start increasing our toughness rating. And then pick up the plasma weapon proficiency, since we'll be able to pick up a plasma weapon soon, if we don't already have one. And then last but not least, we'll upgrade our ultimate. We'll be picking up the second ability, I believe. Yep, the second ability. So whenever you use your ultimate on that target, additionally, all negative effects are immediately removed from the target, and until the end of the officer's next turn, the target can't die. This is mostly just for the cleanse, honestly. It's really nice to have, since there are some pretty debilitating debuffs later in the game. And yeah, it's pretty nice. And that's the officer for your Commissar. And moving right along, we will go to the Vanguard. So one thing to note with the Vanguard is you have your feature called Unyielding Beacon. Each attack against the Vanguard grants them 1 stack of Unyielding Beacon. Each stack increases your resolve by 1, up to a maximum of 15. All allies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard gain a fifth of that bonus. Pretty sweet. But not only that, temporary wounds applied to your Vanguard now stack, but only remain stacked until the start of the Vanguard's turn. And then at the start of the turn, the remaining temporary wounds are reduced to the largest amount granted by one applied effect. If the remaining number of temporary wounds is less than the number of stacks equal to Unyielding Beacons, it becomes equal to those stacks instead. So, pretty nice. This will allow us to be a little tankier with that extra health. So now for our first ability at level 17, I decided to go with Follow My Lead. Since we're not tanky just yet, I decided that we should still kind of go with our support side of things, so let's pick up Follow My Lead. Until the start of the next turn, the Vanguard will gain extra damage based on 10 plus 2 times their fellowship bonus, and you also get armor penetration against enemies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard. Additionally, when the ability is cast, all allies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard gain the following ability until the Vanguard's next turn as well. And following is a 0 AP but costs 2 movement points, and the character can move to any cell adjacent to the Vanguard without provoking attack of opportunity. So this is really important, as it can help you position your melee characters with your Commissar to get a slew of bonuses, which we'll be going over soon. Mostly to set up attacks of opportunity and some other things as well. So follow my lead. And then next, for our common talent, I picked up Steel the Forge. While wearing heavy armor, the Forge World characters gain +1 movement point, deflection, and can't be prone. Now, we're not using heavy armor just yet, but I picked this up so we have it ready when we get it. And then for our first talent for the Vanguard, we picked up Renitent Beacon. Each stack of Unyielding Beacon will increase your armor and parry rating by 1. Very nice. And our ultimate at level 19, Unyielding Guard. Until the next turn, the Vanguard attacks each enemy that attacks the Vanguard's allies in a 3-cell radius around the Vanguard. Additionally, until their next turn, the Vanguard always retaliates when attacked. So, this ultimate is okay. I think the Officer one is a lot better. And sadly, you only can pick one of E2 ultimates when you're in a middle of a fight. So, more often times than not, we will not be using this ultimate. At level 20, we get additional action point. Pretty sweet. And then we'll further increase our fellowship bonus. At level 21, we'll start enhancing our strength, so we can pick up our heavy armor pretty soon. Then we'll pick up the follow-up talent called Offensive Follow. Whenever an ally uses following, that ally will be able to do extra damage based on your fellowship bonus. And that is 5 plus 2 times your fellowship bonus, so that's pretty nice. Especially if they start doing AoE attacks. So, very useful. Alright, so we'll be picking up our heavy armor pretty soon. And so for our next ability, we're going to give ourselves a taunt called Forced Distraction. The Vanguard chooses an ally, and all enemies within a 3-cell radius around this ally must make a willpower resistance test. based on a penalty equal to your fellowship bonus, and on a failed test, the Vanguard becomes their priority target. Regardless of the willpower resistance test results, the chosen ally does not provoke attacks of opportunity from those enemies, can shoot enemies in melee range, and move as if not within range of attacks of opportunity. So pretty nice to help get your ally to move around as they please, or perhaps say Argenta got surrounded and you want to get her out of there. Pretty nice. And then we'll start increasing our coercion again. At 23, we'll pick up the other Vanguard talent, Enduring Shield. While the Vanguard has at least one temporary wound, they'll gain 10% parry and armor, which should be 5 plus your toughness bonus. While the Vanguard has at least one temporary wound, they'll gain 2 times your toughness bonus, equal to your parry and your armor. Pretty nice. And then we will finally pick up our heavy armor proficiency. And there's a really sweet armor you can get fairly early into our Act 2, for that matter. It is just north of Janus, I believe. And once you defeat the fight there, one of the enemies on this Hulk will grant you this Radiant chest piece. It has pretty solid armor, but a nice massive 5 deflection. This is really good this early on in the game. But not only that, you get a little bit of extra fellowship bonus. And you also get a +2 deflection on area attacks, so pretty nice. It's really good armor to have really early in the game. And at level 24, we'll further increase our toughness to increase our toughness bonus. And then we'll also pick up the common talent, It Will Not Die, to increase our maximum HP by half our character's level. This is going to be nice to get some free hit points. At 25, we'll pick up the Vanguard talent, Punish the Imprudent. Once per round, whenever an enemy that considers a Vanguard a priority target enters a cell to that Vanguard, that enemy provokes an attack of opportunity. So this is nice since we'll be taunting things, and we'll be able to get a free hit on them. And we'll have a few other bonuses that are enhanced whenever we make an attack of opportunity. And at level 26, we'll further increase our coercion and increase our strength rating just to get that 5 strength bonus. Alright. And our ultimate upgrade, we're just going to pick the one that makes it so we can't die. So if we ever have to use that ultimate, we'll never die for the next turn. And all damage you take is reduced by your toughness bonus. And then next, we'll pick up Taunting Defense. The Vanguard gains 15% parry against enemies that consider the Vanguard a priority target, which is equal to 5 plus 2 times your toughness bonus. Moving right along, we'll be picking up Lore Imperium, as well as increasing our fellowship to top it off for this archetype. At level 29, we'll pick up our last ability for this archetype, until we get our Exemplar levels, that is, and we'll be picking up Provocation. The Vanguard forces an enemy in their melee range to immediately attack the Vanguard, and all the Vanguard's allies who are wielding melee weapons and adjacent to the enemy take an attack of opportunity against that enemy. And the enemy will suffer extra damage based on your fellowship bonus, and this will also inflict a penalty to parry and dodge equal to 3 times your fellowship bonus. So this is a really nice ability. Yes, it's unfortunate you make an enemy attack you, but you should have enough parry rating to parry most attacks. Or also just shrug it off with your pretty decent deflection bonus at this point. Alright. At level 30, we'll be picking up the Taunting Opportunity talent. Whenever the Vanguard hits an enemy with an attack of opportunity, that enemy must make a willpower test or be taunted, essentially. So pretty nice. Just get a little free taunts here from attacks of opportunity. And then we'll increase our weapon skill. Honestly, you could probably have been picking up your weapon skill in the last archetype, but I decided to go with the range just so we can shoot things a little bit better with our pistols. But you don't really need to use your pistols at all. It's just nice to have, and I think it's just kind of suiting for your Commissar. Anyways, we'll top off our Lore Imperium here before moving to the next level and picking up Defensive Comrade. While the Vanguard has at least one ally in a 2-cell radius, the Vanguard will gain extra parry based on 3 plus your toughness bonus. So ideally, you'll be sticking with a melee partner, so you'll always have the extra parry. And we're going to need any sources of parry and defenses we can get. Alright. And then next, we'll be picking up the Commissar talent, Show Them Contempt. While the Commissar is adjacent to an enemy, all their allies will gain extra resolve equal to your fellowship bonus divided by 2. So this is pretty decent to have. You could probably pick it up earlier if you desire. And it's also if you decided to increase your fellowship even higher earlier as well. It's just a decent ability. Nothing amazing, but it can stack with your other bonuses you'll be getting to resolve and also to your allies as well. And then to wrap up our Vanguard levels, we'll be picking up the second upgrade for our Vanguard. Until the start of the Vanguard's next turn, each attack made by the Vanguard makes them a priority target for the enemy hit. Yep, so again, if we actually use our ultimate here, we will be able to get more taunts. And that wraps up our Vanguard. Moving on to our Exemplar levels. Let's go over which talents we are going to be looking at. So, one of the first talents I like to pick up with this build will be the Flag Bearer. Allies within 2 cells around the character will deal extra damage and suffer less damage, based on both of those based on your fellowship bonus. It is really suiting to me as a Commissar and also lends itself to that high fellowship melee range type character. Pretty nice. You could also pick this up on Cassia, for example, and not run this on this character, and just have her up in the melee if you desire. And then we also get to pick our officer talents again. I decided to opt for Steal the Resolve to increase our resolve by 3. Where is it? Or you could also pick up the Inspiring Speech talent. We could pick this up in our officer levels as well, by the way. But what this will do, it will enhance our Air of Authority to immediately grant that momentum to the target equal to that target's resolve. So that's pretty nice, especially once you get your resolve higher to transfer it to them. But for now, I decided to go with just Steal Resolve just to get our resolve a little bit higher. Other talents we're going to be picking up will be Focus to help our ranged characters. Personal Oversight can be decent as well. Whenever that officer targets an ally with an action, an ability, or an attack, the ally's resolve is increased by 1 until the officer's next turn. The effect stacks and is prolonged until the end of the officer's next turn, each time it stacks. But yeah, it's a decent ability. And then we'll be able to pick up our other abilities for our Commissar. And you can either do Get Back in the Fight to help be a little bit more supportive and help, quote-unquote, heal a little bit by removing harmful effects, such as the stun condition, which is pretty important. But also increase their temporary wounds if they have Voice of Command active. And obviously, Break Their Ranks would be really useful for your allies that are in your melee range. You might even decide to pick this up earlier instead of Air of Authority, just to help get that synergy going throughout most of the game. Otherwise, we'll be picking up Break Their Ranks now, or we can pick up Take Aim to make your range characters a little bit more shootier, although I think Break Their Ranks to be a stronger ability than Take Aim. Take Aim is good, but I like the usefulness of Break Their Ranks, especially in combination with the extra melee damage and then being able to do extra damage on attacks of opportunity. Pretty nice. Which combos with, Be Vigilant. Anyways, so that's that. Other talents we should consider in our Exemplar levels would be Tough as Steel to get more wounds. I wouldn't pick this up until probably the last one. Flesh Wounds could be really good. At the start of the character's turn, they will restore 10% of their maximum health. And if the character has less than 20% health, they will gain 20 instead of 10. Pretty nice. Full Attention does lend itself to our tanky type role by making so targets who are not considered a priority target will take 40% less damage. Pretty decent. Lethal Threat will make it so that our regular attacks will also essentially make them taunt, instead of just relying on the attacks of opportunity talent. This is nice to have. And honestly, if you have both of them, you'll have 2 chances to taunt the enemy when you attack them with attack of opportunity. Unbreakable Will could be very useful, actually, since we'll have really sky-high deflection bonus later in the game This will help enhance our resistance test equal to 5 times our deflection bonus. And you'll see how sky high we're going to get it in a moment. Steel Shell will also be a fantastic pick. The character's deflection is doubled against single target attacks. And again, you're going to have sky high deflection with this build. Peak Condition can be decent, as you'll gain a 20% bonus to your strength equal to your maximum health. This could help offset our lack of damage with our character, and this will help us get a little edge in there. And then we got Revenge. Whenever the character loses wounds, the next melee attack will gain 1 damage for every 2 health you've lost, and it will stack. And since we're going to be attacked a lot, this can be quite relevant and make our next attack do a solid amount of damage. Eager for Battle is pretty decent, and we'll make it so on our first turn, we'll get 2 additional action points. I haven't been able to test yet if this works with Seize the Initiative. Hopefully it does, because then you can get 4 points on that bonus officer round, and that'll be pretty sweet. Then we'll be picking up some of these supportive talents, such as Eager Subordinates. When allies take actions on extra turns given by the character, they'll deal 15% more damage. Firebrand, however, is fantastic for your build. If an extra turn is granted by your character and grants movement points, you'll gain +4 additional movement points, and if you give him AP, the target will gain additional AP on top of that. So Firebrand's a really good one to pick up pretty early. And then obviously Flag Bearer is really good. I like to pick it up early just because it's very suiting for your Commissar. And there's a few other things in here as well. Know-It-All could be pretty decent since our intelligence bonus isn't dreadful. I mean, we get a +4 bonus, but the character will gain a 2 plus intelligence bonus divided by 2 to all these other effects, such as your armor penetration, dodge reduction, critical hit chance, critical damage, parry, blah, blah, blah. So Know-It-All can be decent, especially if we have other ways to enhance our intelligence. Which we could if you have Cassia buffing you. But anyways, those are some of your Exemplar talents ideas. And then just be picking up all the Vanguard and Officer talents you didn't pick up before. So let's look into our items and what's going to make our Commissar pop. Alright, so here we are in the late game. There's a few different items. There's so many different items in the game that you can use on your character. There's a lot of officer-specific items, such as Medal of Alacrity. When the wearer targets an ally with Bring It Down, the ability for the first time in combat, they'll get an additional action point. Pretty sweet. And there's also an officer cape that enhances your distance on your officer abilities. You get it fairly early in the game. Yeah, you can find the Commander's Cloak in the early game, I believe off of Rykad Minoris during the planet that has the rebellion going on. You have to go to one of the starships in the second scene, I believe, on the first map. And if you pass your check, you'll be able to get this pretty sweet cloak and increase the range of your archetype abilities by 1. It's not game breaking though, so if you don't find this cloak, you're not going to be too bad. Don't worry about it. One of the starting cloaks you get off of the prologue actually is pretty sweet. The Rogue Trader's Cloak. It'll grant you a +5 fellowship bonus for each enemy in a 2-cell radius. So this is what's going to let you make your fellowship go sky high. And then in combination with Helm of Determination, you get pretty early as well. And this requires you to have a little bit of Iconoclast conviction, and the wearer of this helmet will gain a bonus to their armor equal to their fellowship bonus. And the helmet also grants a bonus to fellowship equal to 2 times your Iconoclast rank. So this one is obviously meant for more of an Iconoclast playthrough, but on this character specifically, it is a mercenary, so I couldn't really get all the conviction as you can get in the game for your main character. But I believe dogmatic Iconoclast playthrough, maybe a hybrid of each, could be useful. However, you do definitely want to focus on one particular one whenever there's option granted. And then if you see options later in the game, say like dogmatic, if you're going Iconoclast playthrough, whenever there's no Iconoclast option to pick, but there is a dogmatic one, pick the dogmatic, etc. Or vice versa. If the always pick the dogmatic option presented to you, and then if you see Iconoclast when dogmatic isn't available, then pick the Iconoclast one. That way you can get a little bit of both worlds. But yeah, helmet determination is pretty solid if you do decide to go a little bit of that kind of class route to give you a little extra damage and to give you a little extra armor and enhance your tankiness. The Radiant Chestplate, as I mentioned before, you can find this pretty early in Act 2. I believe one of the planets just beyond Janus, I want to say. And there's a pirate attack just above it, so you have to kill the pirates above them and then go on this void ship to rat them out, and one of the enemies there will drop this sweet breastplate for you. Later in the game, you'll be able to get some items that will enhance your lore Imperium, such as the Chartist Pendant. The wearer will gain +5 Fellowship and +10 to Commerce. If the wearer has Dogmatic Adherence, or above, their lore Imperium will depend on Fellowship instead of Intelligence, and then you also gain +10 lore Imperium. So this is important, because if you're dogmatic, you'll be able to get your lore Imperium pretty sky high. So as you see here, we only have 100, but that's just because this character is capped at the first tier of being dogmatic since it's a mercenary. You can't get to the next tier. If you can, then he'd have his much, much higher lore Imperium. The reason why we want to have that really high is for another trinket we can get, called St. Cognitus Scriptures. It'll grant you +20 lore Imperium, and the warrior will gain extra armor and deal extra critical damage against Xenos and demons, based on your Imperial rating. Then on top of that, they can also re-roll a failed test once per test. And I think that applies to all tests, not just the lore Imperium ones. Pretty nice to have. Just get a little extra damage and armor against Xenos and demons, and there are quite enough of those that make this pretty relevant through most of the game. Yeah, pretty nice. And then there's an item called Radiant Gloves. This item grants the wearer a +5 to parry reduction, and if the wearer has Conviction Iconoclast, all allies will gain 10 +2 times your Iconoclast rank to hit chance against enemies adjacent to the wearer. And the wearer automatically dodges allies' melee attacks. So this is pretty sweet. Very nice to have. I don't remember when you get this in the game. I think it's in late Act 3, maybe Act 4. It's pretty nice. Then we get this sword right here. This is a pretty nice one. It isn't a power sword though, so that's unfortunate. We'll have to. There's a lot of other power options or power swords we can show you in a moment. But this one in particular will make it so you get a +25% bonus to your parry and dodge, and it does a pretty decent amount of damage. And then enemies hit by this sword will also have their weapon skill reduced. And then some obvious items your Commissar could wear would be the Commissar's Cap. Grant the wearer a +10 to Fellowship, and then also the wearer grants also grants a bonus to critical hit chance based on your Fellowship bonus to yourself and to your allies. Pretty nice. And then the Commissar's Boots. Whenever the wearer chooses an ally to be the target of ability, the wearer immediately grants Fellowship bonus, movement points. And then the target ally gains extra movement points at the start of the ally's next turn. Pretty nice. So that way you can give yourself some more movement points and your allies so you can get around to where you need to go. And as you see here, I'm not using a plasma pistol because at this point in the game when I made this mercenary, I accidentally sold all my plasma pistols. So pretend this is a pistol, alright? But there are plenty of items in the game that will make your Commissar quite useful. And the reason why we also stacked Coercion so high is for this beautiful, beautiful heavy armor here. The Arbitrator Solomon's Veer's armor. It grants a massive amount of armor, a solid amount of armor deflection here, but more importantly, down at the bottom here, when the wearer hits a criminal enemy, that enemy will gain a +1 stack of Perplexed, and that just reduces their tests later, or that just reduces their tests, which also makes it so you can taunt them easier. But more importantly, this armor will grant you Coercion divided by 10 deflection. So let's go ahead and slap that puppy on. Bam! 17 deflection. And we can enhance this further with another item, such as this pirate scarf over here, giving us even more. I just put our hat back on. Oh, it doesn't even show our hat. Oh no, maybe we don't wear this pirate scarf. Now we lost our hat. Nobody wants that. Look at that bald head. Oh no, let's put our hat back on. But anyhow, there are plenty of items in the game that will lend itself to your Commissar Vanguard build. Obviously, if you're going to be picking up that Forge World talent to enhance your damage with plasma and power weapons, make sure you try to emphasize on using those weapons. There are plenty of decent plasma pistols in the game and plenty of really good power melee weapons, such as this Earthbreaker here. Like any of these maces are really nice. You get a nice, really big AoE swing. And then you have the ability to shove things, which is fantastic in the game. Knocking down enemies has a really high chance to make them go prone, which just makes it so you can do more damage further. Anyhow, that wraps up this video for this guide today. I hope you guys have an idea of how to build your Vanguard Commissar. If you guys really desire to see some in-game footage of it, I'll do a separate video of the gameplay footage of this character in action. And I really hope you enjoyed this guide, everyone. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more guides like these. And comment down below what you'd like to see in the future. And as we wrap up this year, I just want to say thank you all to everyone who's supported me and watched my videos. I really appreciate it, and I really love making these videos. Alright, Happy New Year, everyone, and farewell for now.